Well, here's another episode of Selling Point. Today, I want to talk about a topic I'm calling Follow the Yellow Brick Road. Now, that probably means something to you. Certainly everyone, at least once in their life, has seen The Wizard of Oz. And in that story, quick encapsulation, is that there's a bad tornado in Kansas, and it picks up Dorothy's house and lifts her up and deposits her when the storm is over in a place called Somewhere Over the Rainbow. And so she wants to get back home, and the good witch Glinda comes along and tells her that what she needs to do to get some help is that she needs to go to Oz and see the wizard, that he can help her. And so she points out a yellow brick road there, and she says, follow the yellow brick road, and it will take you to Oz, and you'll be able to get the help that you need. Now, what's that have to do with selling? Well, today I hope it's going to mean a lot to you when we get finished, but I want to talk about the fact that, even though every customer and prospect that you talk to certainly is different, no two are cookie cutter type prospects, but there's one thing that we do as consumers that is typically uniform for all of us, and that is that we have questions in our mind as we're sitting down with somebody or listening to some kind of sales pitch or some kind of presentation. And that's what I want to talk about, and I'm calling those steps the yellow brick road. And I want to talk about 6 of them today very quickly that I hope will make sense to you to know what's going on in the mind of your prospect when you are when you are working there with them. Now, they don't say these questions out loud. These take place in their mind, but they're certainly questions that they want answered, even though they don't mention them verbally. So the first question is, do I like you and can I trust you? We don't buy from people that we don't like. And likability can come very quickly when you meet someone just because of your smile, your personality, your upbeat nature, that you look good and you smell good, those sort of things. So likability can come pretty quickly, but trustworthiness is going to take a while. And the point is that if you're not likable, and if they don't pick up on the likability aspect, certainly that will never grow into trustworthiness. So that's the first question that they're asking in their mind, not out loud, that you need to realize and address. The second question is, do you really care about me? We need to remember that everybody on the planet is walking around with an invisible sign on their chest that says, make me feel special. And in sales, to accomplish this, one of the ways we can do that is by asking open questions. I know for years I've used a little poem that helps me stay on track with that. It goes like this: I keep 6 honest serving men. They tell me all I knew. Their names are what and why and when and where and how and who. I send them over land and sea. I send them east and west. And after they've worked for me, I give them all a rest. So when you're asking open questions, obviously those are going to require answers and not just a nod or an from your prospect. So those certainly help the likability aspect and begin to build a little trust, because the prospect sees that you're really listening. And when you do that, you want to listen actively. And active listening means that you make good eye contact. It means that you sort of paraphrase their responses every once in a while, and that lets them know that for sure you're really listening. And then it demonstrates that you care, and certainly it discourages them from thinking that you're a hit and run salesperson. The third question is, look, do I really have a problem? People don't want to spend money on problems that aren't there. And so whether they call us out with a problem or whether we're there creatively and or having a call that we're making on them where they don't even know whether they have a problem or not, The point is that sometimes customers, whether they be business customers or residential customers, sometimes they know about their issues and sometimes they don't. And so what we've got to do, obviously, is we got to do some kind of checkup, inspection, assessment, whatever you call that process at your company. But to do that, we've got to be able to describe that problem. Once we find it, we got to be able to describe it to them. And then you ought to back that up with photographs, or even better, if there's some movement going on with the problem, is take a video of that particular area or whatever that problem is. So just remember that surgery without a diagnosis is malpractice, and we certainly don't want to do that. So please treat every prospect that you talk to like you'd want your own mama treated. The fourth question is, well, what can you do for me? So once you've established that there's an issue there, then your prospect certainly needs to know what it is that you can do. So this is where you would offer your solution and show how that your product or your service is going to be the one that's going to be able to solve those issues for them. In the process of doing that, of course, we're going to use features and benefits. That's just a building block ABC from the first time you ever went into sales. But don't forget that features tell, but it's the benefits that sell. So don't get wrapped up in just giving this laundry list and data dump of features that your service or your product will accomplish, because that's not really what's going to trigger a purchase. So when it comes to benefits now, there are what I call two flavors of benefits. There's a logical benefit, which tells that prospect a little bit about how your solution works. And then there's an emotional benefit that's going to tell them how they will feel as a result of that. That's where you really want to heavy up, because phrases like peace of mind, allowing you to sleep better at night, these are emotional benefits, and obviously everybody wants that. And finally, when possible, if you can, you ought to demonstrate your solution to your prospect. If it's that type of product or service that's demonstrable, then you ought to do that, because we've all heard that a picture's worth 1,000 words, and I believe that. But add to that the fact that a demo is worth $1,000, so it makes a lot of difference. The fifth question that is in the mind of your prospect is, look, does this make sense to me financially? So in this particular phase of your sales call, you need to make sure that you qualify your company as the right one that's going to take care of their problem, but you should cite some differences. You ought to know enough about your competition to know what they do versus what you do, is to cite some of the differences and the nuances of what your service or product does that's going to help them reduce risk. This is what people really want. They want risk-free everything. And so people don't want to take a risk. So make sure that you also you let them know that your service or your product provides the lowest cost over the life of the service, even when your upfront price might be somewhat more. So the sixth and final question is, do I want it, and should I take action now? You know, it's normal for people to hesitate when they're having to make a decision. And so don't be surprised if you get a little put off, or you get a think about it, or those kind of things. That just goes with it. That's going to happen as long as you're in sales. So don't be surprised. But the best way to handle those, and along with objections, is to bring them up before they're verbalized by your prospect or your customer. That way you basically take that objection away from them. So build some of those in to the process. And maybe, if you're normal, price is probably one of the top three concerns that are going to come out. So maybe you want to build that in the process, especially if you sell a premium service. And so mention the fact to them out loud that, hey, a lot of our customers, when they initially looked at this service of mine, they felt like it was too expensive, and they knew that they could get it cheaper from somebody else because they'd already had a bid made for them. But let me tell you why that that's not true, and then give them the answer to that. And from then on, you don't have to deal with that because you've taken the objection away from them. So just remember in the whole process of doing this that nobody wants to be pushed, but everybody wants to be led. So make sure that that's what you're doing and not putting any pressure on them. And I'm big on maintaining integrity while I'm in the process of selling. So as we close, remember that selling is not something that you do to someone, but it's something that you do with and for someone. And when you do that, then customers are likely to stick with you longer and be more likely to give you referrals, recommendations, introductions to other future customers that are in their universe. So how about that? It looks like you didn't have to go see the wizard after all. So I hope this selling point makes sense to you. Take care.